Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Stephen King podcast. This is episode 106, and I have 2 times in a row my special guest, Tyson Blue. Hi, Tyson. How are you doing?
Not bad. And you?
Not too bad. It's only been a week, so I assume not much has changed for you. So we'll just...
No, not a lot.
Yeah, so we'll just dive right into it. And today we're going to be talking about 2 things. First of all, we're going to give our thoughts on the Netflix series Locke Key, based on, of course, the Joe Hill comic book series. And then Tyson will give us a tease, whet our appetites for his upcoming book, based on 2 Frank Darabont scripts for SHAWSHANK and the Green Mile. So let's get into it. Locke and Key is a property that began its life as a comic book series by Joe Hill. And I have to say that I thought it was a really fantastic series. The whole mythology of the series, the key house and the magical keys, I thought was really something new and unique. I mean, there's been variations of it, but I just think the way that Joe Hill tied the keys to this particular house, which is basically another character, was really well done. What did you think about the original source material?
I liked it. I thought it was fairly original too. It had young people as the main characters, which would bring in a younger audience, but not necessarily a juvenile audience, because it is a mature audience's comic. And I know that it's taken several years to get this to a network. They tried several places, had a couple of failed pilots, and different streaming services passed on it, but it's finally found a home at Netflix. And overall, I think they've done a pretty good job with it.
I agree with you. I really enjoyed the series quite a bit. It caught me a little bit off guard tonally, and I guess it shouldn't have, because it's rated TV-14 on Netflix, which stayed pretty well within that realm. And as you mentioned, the series seems to have been targeted more for a YA audience than an adult audience. And if there's one disappointment I have with the series, it probably would be that, because tone-wise, the comic books are a lot more grittier and darker. And I found this one to be just a little bit lighter, a little bit too light for my tastes or for my expectation.
Yeah, it seemed to be aimed more for the Stranger Things audience. Or somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, that's a very good observation, actually. It's interesting because from a story perspective, it followed the comic book series pretty closely. It did condense a couple of characters, but happens in TV adaptation. And a lot of times it actually works to the benefit of the story. So some of the members from the film club group were put together in one character, the Scott with 1 T character. Mm-hmm. But we start with this family, and it's a very tragic opening. They're coming back to their father's ancestral home, I guess you could say, which is located in Matheson. And this is a name change from the comic book, because in the comic book it was called Lovecraft, but Joe Hill had second thoughts about that based on Lovecraft's life outside of his writing. He was, not a liberal person, shall we say.
Or at least not politically correct.
Not politically correct. And so I don't know the full story on that name change, of whether Joe Hill just decided to do that on his own, or maybe he was just monitoring feedback and decided to change the name. But
could be. I haven't seen anything that explains it. He could have thought his audience, or the younger audience, might not know who Lovecraft was.
I think Lovecraft name is still pretty well known. I certainly think Lovecraft is much more identifiable than Matheson. There's a lot of people that have no idea who Richard Matheson is, unfortunately.
Which is too bad.
Yes, because he's basically the precursor to Stephen King. Like, he's the generation before. He's written some amazing material. For a lot of it ended up in the Twilight Zone. Most famously is his Nightmare 20,000 Feet, which has been remade several times now. He also, of course, wrote the Omega Man, which
it's I Am Legend,
which Will Smith starred in, and Charlton Heston did a version of it as well, I believe. Or is that Vincent Price?
Last Man on Earth.
Yeah.
Well, Charlton Heston, did he do one?
He did Soylent Green,
last
I think.
Soylent Green,
Yeah.
but Soylent Green was based on another novel called Make Room, which was by someone whose name escapes me at the moment. Harry Harrison, I want to say.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But no, there were three versions of I Am Legend made. There was Last Man on Earth, which I think did star Vincent Price,
Yep.
and then there was actually the Omega Man did have Charlton Heston in it, and it is based on Matheson's book.
Okay.
And then there was the I Am Legend with Will Smith.
Yep.
Seem to have more in common with a book whose title escapes me, and unfortunately it's not sitting on the shelf like the Bible is.
Yeah. So it's a nice nod. Older baby boomer viewers of the show will of course recognize the name, but I think this Matheson will be lost on a lot of younger viewers. But it doesn't change the story in any way. So
they might think it was named for his son Richard Christian Matheson, who we'll be talking about later briefly because he wrote the introduction for my book.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So this story is centered around the Locke family, who, when the series opens, there's four members. The fifth one, the father, was just killed before the story starts, and we find out exactly how that happens through flashbacks. And so we have basically the mother, who's Nina Locke, and then we have the teenage son is Tyler, the daughter, also a teenager, is Kinsey, and then the younger grade school son is Bodie Locke, who's of course played by an actor that, if anybody saw the It movies, will recognize right away. And that is Jackson Robert Scott, who played Georgie in the It movies. And boy, he's grown quite a bit since those movies.
Yes, he has a lot more to do in this one.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, because he basically carries the series for the first, I'd say, almost 3 episodes before the story expands out to include the other family members. And initially I was a little bit worried, and maybe that's just because I was so tied to his portrayal of Georgie that I thought, I don't know if this kid can handle this, because he had a ton of dialogue to do in the first couple episodes, but he definitely was up to the challenge, and I really came to appreciate his portrayal of Bodhi quite a bit.
Yeah, me too. I was impressed. There seemed to be a lot of good, really young child actors out there all of a sudden.
Yeah, really, eh? Yeah, because even like the teenagers typically are hard to cast, because teenagers usually are portrayed in movies as being whiny and self-absorbed. And while that is a phase of life that we all do go through, it doesn't make for interesting dramatical viewing for a spectrum of viewers, because that's just tied to that one age group. But
right.
I think overall they both Amelia Jones and Connor Jessup did a great job. I really liked their portrayals, and I thought that they carried because each family member carries like some sort of hidden guilt or fear.
Right.
I thought they played that well, and I liked especially how they handled Tyler's guilt about feeling like that he was the reason why Rufus went and shot his father or killed his father, because he had made like a comment when they were sitting together in the office for detention about, if you had the gun, why don't you take my dad out at the same time? And so he's carrying that guilt around in his persona for the bulk of the series. And Kinsey's fear is, of course, that she was too afraid to do anything, but when she was really protecting Bodhi, they were hiding from the killer. Mm-hmm. And then we have the mother, who her story was softened the most is with her alcoholism, drinking problem. Right. So I don't think that came across particularly strongly, but it didn't detract from the series. I just thought the impact of her alcohol addiction was not come across as strongly as it could have.
No, but I think I read somewhere that it's been picked up for another season, so that may develop later.
Right. So that's the core of the characters that we spend the most time with. Other characters come in later on, and they're all generally pretty good. The Kinsey's Camera Club, as I called them, they were all pretty good. And then Tyler's girlfriend, or I guess in quotes, because they never really locked that down totally.
Right.
That was pretty good. Then probably the standout is the actor who played Dodge, who's the villain of the series, really the only villain. And I'm her first name, I don't know how you say it. Is it Laisla? Or Laisla, I think, the Aloveria. She was quite good.
Yes.
She was thin and dark, and she was very menacing.
So, too, she reminds me a lot of an actress who was in a lot of the old AIP Poe movies, in Barbara Steele.
Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah.
Not quite riveting, but...
Yeah. She was solid, and she definitely, every time she was on the screen, you felt threatened by her presence. So I thought that was really well done. And that, I think in the first episode, it removed really fast because she got out of that well. It seemed very quickly to me. I don't know how you felt about that, but
I thought so too. Maybe she was a disembodied voice through most of the episode, but then showed up in the third act. I guess,
yeah,
it was.
and I going like, wow, that's fast. I would have thought that wouldn't have happened till the second episode at the earliest, but
she was a little more of a solid corporeal being than she was in the comic for quite a while.
Yeah.
I think there are reasons for that. We'll kind of get into those later.
Yeah. Well, we have to remember this is a TV production, so it's you know, the special effects in general were pretty good, and we could talk about those a little bit more later. I just want to keep going with the cast here. There's a couple of nice surprises. One of them was makeup artist Tom Savini, who showed up as the store owner in one of the episodes. So that was a nice surprise. And then, of course, near the end of the series, when the ambulance came, we got Joe Hill.
Yeah. And Joe has listed Savini as one of his primary influences on his writing and other work. He talks about him a lot in the introduction to Full Throttle, his last short story collection.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sure that was one of the reasons he probably wanted to have him put in there.
Yeah, and I remember there was Joe put up a tweet about Savini, and then King says, "Yeah, I was there when he started," and Joe responded that, "Yeah, you're all part of the original gang," or something like that. So that's pretty good. So there are a couple of Easter egg bits of casting done in the series that we're a hoot to see. It's interesting that one of the executive producers and writers on this was Carlton Cuse, who of course we all know from Lost fame. He's jumped around and done quite a few interesting projects. Of course, the previous one was the Psycho series with the actor that's the Good Doctor now. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but so Carlton Cuse is continuing to produce strong work here.
Yeah, he's also involved in some of the Star Trek shows on CBS All Access.
Is he, or is that Damon Lindelof? Or maybe it is Carlton Cuse.
Both of them are.
Oh, okay. And Gabriel Rodriguez also got some writing credits here, and he's, of course, the artist for the comic book series, so that was interesting to see. And the directors were, probably the most recognizable name is Vincenzo Natali. I think he did the In the Tall Grass Netflix. And I think this was executive produced by the Machetes. Yes, they are. Andy and Barbara. And they did a pilot too, didn't they?
I think so.
And that was not picked up either. So this was actually the third kick at the can.
Yeah.
So, and I guess third time's a charm, because generally I thought the 10 episode arc for the series turned out quite well. I thought that it was the right length for the arc of the story.
Yeah.
And there was never really a filler episode. The story kept moving forward with every episode. I can't say which one I thought was my favorite. I think I do feel like the first half of the series was stronger than the back half. I had some problems with especially the last episode, and I don't know how you felt about the series arc overall.
Pretty much the same way. The first 4 or 5 episodes were the best. And several of my friends who'd watched it also thought that the writing sagged a little towards the end. One person gave up on it after 5 or 6 episodes.
Oh, really?
Which I thought was extreme.
I didn't think it sagged that much.
I didn't either, but maybe I'm enough of a fan to keep going, even if I felt it was getting a little slow, but I didn't really feel that at all.
Right. So we had the 10 episodes. Welcome to Matheson, at Trapper Keeper, Head Games, The Keeper of the Keys, Family Tree, The Back Door, Dissection, Ray of Effing Sunshine, Echoes, and Crown of Shadows. And I can see from the IMDb ratings that basically, I think episode 3, Head Games, which I think was probably one of the stronger episodes, and the Ray of Sunshine episode were also, which was the 7th episode, where it ended up getting the highest ratings at 8. Keeper of Keys, which was the 4th episode, was pretty good as well. That's the one where Kinsey has taken out her fear and is now acting on her lack of hindrance in that respect. From basically, she's going out and being very outgoing and aggressive, and perhaps a little too aggressive in a certain situation. But it worked quite well. I thought that the characters all had pretty good arcs, especially the teenagers. I like that for Kinsey, her taking out of her fear with the head key was pretty cool. And I do like how they visualized using the head key, because in the comic book, it was quite a bit different. And for obvious reasons, they can't.
Well, they I did kind of miss that, but I know it's a TV show in its first season, so they're not going to have a budget to do that with CGI. So this was a good substitute. I liked the way that the places they went to were individually suited. Got a kick out of the fact that Kinsey was annoyed that hers was a mall. And so I thought they handled that really well from a minimal special effects standpoint, and might be interesting if the series takes off, if they are able to expand and maybe actually show that, although they could still do most of the action in the characters' heads in the same way they did it. But it would be to see the little top heads if they ever get the budget. Yeah, it's kind of like comparing a later season of Game of Thrones with the first season, where you were seeing the first battle from Tyrion's viewpoint, and he goes out and takes about 2 steps and gets knocked down by a horse and knocked out and wakes up and the battle is over. Or when they show an army, you'd see about 15 guys coming around in the foreground, and then in the background you'd see a few more, so they didn't have to show this long line of soldiers. Yeah,
Kinsey's fear arc was generally pretty well done, though I did find that it fell apart a little bit in the 10th episode for me, because she hasn't returned that fear to herself, yet she was starting to act more responsibly, I guess we could say. And she was the one that was hesitating about whether or not to open the door at the end, which didn't make any sense. Like, I thought that Tyler would have been the one that would have been hesitant, because her fear is still out of her. So unless it was regrowing with her new experiences again. But I don't know if that was, I haven't read all of the Locke and Key comic books, so I don't know if that's a arc that has to be closed still, whether she's going to reintegrate that fear back into herself or not. I don't know, but
I'm not sure either. It's been a while since I read. The last time I read the original books was when they were published. So
I'm not, like, her behavior in the last episode or two didn't jibe with the fact that her fear was still out there running loose and free. So that was one of the issues I had with the last episode. I did like Tyler's arc. It was more internal, because he basically found out that, who was the guy? Was it Rufus, or I'm mixing up the character? What was the, or was it Sam Lesser? Sorry. He didn't even remember Tyler saying that. So, so he was torturing himself over nothing, really. So I thought that was pretty well done. I did like the bits where with the head key, they would have different memories of the same events or the same story, especially the story that their father told about this boat and what happened to the survivors.
Yeah, that's always an interesting storytelling technique. It's been used. William Faulkner used it in The Sound and the Fury, Japanese film Rashomon, and it's always an interesting way to tell a story, because you get all the different points of view in there.
Yeah, especially for Kinsey, because she, and generally, like, her siblings too, they all look down on their mother a little bit because of her drinking issues. But her memory was selective in that she did not remember that her mother was at one of her favorite birthday events, that her father took her to the aquarium, and that her mother was there too. And then she realized that she was being very selective with her memory in terms of her mother. So I really appreciated those little nuances in the characters. I thought that was well done.
Yeah, it developed over the arc of the series, which is nice to see, because it doesn't always happen.
That's right. Yeah, generally a lot of times things are introduced and then they just sort of are left as dangling threads. And I mean, it's good to leave certain dangling threads, especially if you're doing a series. But if you're setting up expectations that for the viewer that they're going to get answers to certain questions and you don't deliver on them, that's what leads to dissatisfaction with the overall product. But in general, I thought this series handled that pretty well. Guess most of my issues around the writing in the 10th episode are mythology based. And I don't know, again, because I haven't read the entire Locke and Key series, but the mythology of the house and the keys is never explained. No. So because of that, you don't know all the rules. And my particular bone to pick with the 10th episode is the revelation that their father had hidden the key inside of him in his head.
Right.
And to me, the key is a physical object. I understand it's a magical key, but everything else that we were shown in the other episodes all dealt with ideas and concepts and memories. It was never established that you could hide or put something from the real world into somebody's head. So that, I mean, it's a clever idea, but it wasn't explained properly. Maybe, and that will be explained in later seasons. But and then again, they just might say, well, it's a magic key. You can do whatever you want with it. But
somehow that's not quite as satisfying as coming up with something that's consistent with the storyline and the rules that have been set up.
Exactly.
Doesn't set up that he didn't get out of the cockadoodie car.
Yeah, it's always that acid test about the cockadoodie car that you have to pass, and I think it's a little wobbly. I don't know how you feel about that. Of
course, the other interesting thing is, on that analogy, is that King of the Rocket Men was one of my favorite movie serials when I was a kid, and I actually own a copy of it, and that episode ain't in there.
Oh, interesting. So they just totally pretend it didn't happen. In other words. So, and see, this is generally the problem with magic. If you make it too easy to use or introduce too much of it, it kills a lot of the dramatic tension of moments, because anything that happens, you can just conjure up a magic key to handle the problem, right?
It's like Superman. Once you create this character that is invulnerable, then all the dramatic tension goes out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like what happened in the last Star Wars movie, where all these new force powers were being introduced, where now people can heal each other, and now the Emperor can zap a whole space battle with the Force. So like all these powers that we had never seen before, but it was pushing the limits. And the same thing happens in this episode 10 for B2 with the identity key. It's like the face mask thing in Mission Impossible, that, if you set something up and you paint yourself in a corner, then the solution is just to, okay, well, this wasn't really that person to begin with, so that's why this happened. So with the identity key, there was a lot of flip-flopping of Dodge into Lucas, and then into some of the other characters from the Camera Club. And of course, at the end of the episode, the setup of the second season is the fact that two of the characters are now set up as these demons that are on the loose. So it's Jackie, I guess, and no, not Jackie, Eden. Sorry, Jackie is Tyler's quote unquote girlfriend, I guess you could say, and the other character was who was the 1-2 boyfriend tandem for Kinsey. And in that one particular episode, that was like a weird moment too, where she made that proposal to Scott and Gabe that she could date both of them. I was going, that doesn't sound like Kinsey to me. That didn't have nothing to do with fear. That just felt out of character. Yeah. So that was a weird thing too, that didn't really work for me. And I don't know why they added it to the story, because it wasn't really necessary either, right?
Oh.
It's a weird choice. So yeah, overall, it was pretty good. I do think the lessening of the mood of the maturity level of the story underplayed the death of the father. Yeah. The impact of that I don't think was felt as deeply as it could have been or should have been. And that's where that was kind of like the moment where I knew that the series was going to be pulling back, is how they shot and showed the father being killed. And I don't know if
there's a lot more with that was a lot more graphic and violent in the story, and there's even more graphic violence that comes along as the story progresses.
Yeah.
And we'll just have to see what they do with that. Yeah.
So you just have to accept that this show is aimed at a lower age level than what I was originally expecting, because it was on Netflix. I thought it was going to be a little more mature, but I think you called it right off the top when you said that this is aiming for that Stranger Things crowd, which we know that series is probably on its last season, because I just think they're hitting the wall with what they can do with that show as well. So they're looking for something to replace it. And I think that you're right. I think this is the series that they want to replace Stranger Things with.
And that wouldn't be a bad choice. I mean, they are continuing every once in a while to put out new Locke and Key stories. There was a one shot that came out a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And that was a backstory.
Yeah.
So that'd be good to go into some of the backstory of Key House.
Yeah. It'd be nice to find out where all these keys came from and how it came to be. And we might as well segue over into the production design of this show. I mentioned in a tweet that I thought when I was watching it, this show reminded me of a mix of Harry Potter, the Haven TV series, if you ever saw that, because in any of the establishing shots of the town, it definitely looked like the same town that they used for the Haven show, and a Skittles commercial, because the colors on this were off the chart at times, especially like you mentioned.
They were in the characters' heads.
Yeah, Kinsey's shopping mall particularly, but even the house itself was very brightly colored and usually well lit, and the production design was off the chart. I think that's where a lot of the money went. And the house is a very important character in the show, and they definitely spent the money on making it look pretty gorgeous.
Yeah, I did. It looked a lot like the one in the comics.
The wheelhouse, or the well house, I should say. Yeah, it was really well done. The only time I felt like the TV budget showed up is that any of the outside shots or establishing shots of the house were really tight, so you never saw where it was in relation to anything else. I don't know if that was.
I know the production was based in Toronto, but that obviously wasn't there. I know there's a studio just east of the city in Oshawa. It's a sugar beet factory. It's where a lot of the scenes for Storm of the Century were shot.
Right. Yeah, I was under the impression the show was shot in Nova Scotia.
It might have, but I noticed in the credits that they meant, or no, it was on the Wikipedia page for the show listed as Toronto based.
Well, the production office might be, but I'm pretty sure
that might be there. That doesn't mean that they couldn't shoot exteriors in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, it's running through the production list here to see where it was shot. It doesn't say. Well, filming and production. No, it was okay. So it was filmed in several spots: Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, Hamilton, Toronto. So 3 spots. So I'm pretty sure the town shots were done in Nova Scotia, because Lunenburg, I believe, is the same town they used for the Haven TV series. So yeah, I got quite the Haven vibe from those shots.
But Hamilton, I mean, Hamilton looks like the beginning of Blade Runner.
Steel Town. Yeah, some of the exteriors could have been there too. They have certain neighborhoods that look like that, but I think in general they probably shot a lot of it in Lunenburg, or at least the exteriors. Probably all the house stuff was sure done on a soundstage for. Yeah, because that just makes the productions so much easier to do it that way. But so like the house was really well done, and all the keys looked pretty cool. I thought they were all very true to the comic book source material.
So too.
So it's a very bright and vibrant show, which again tends to mute the impact of any of the horror or tension moments.
I thought the stained glass they used throughout or scattered here and there on their interiors was really bright and stood out quite a bit.
Yeah, and generally I like the look of the show. If I had any quibbles, it would be with the school scenes. They just seemed a little too Hogwartsian for my taste.
Yeah, even for a private school that looked pretty elaborate and pretty fancy.
Yeah,
There's a house in Toronto. I forget the name of it. I've been there. It's like they used it for the Professor X's school in the X-Men.
Yes, I know the one. I know the place you mean. I've been there. Oh, I'm drunk on blank on that too. But I haven't been there for a while. Yeah, it's in downtown Toronto. Yeah, it's.
But even that didn't. I don't remember as being fancy enough to be this place, because it looks like a castle. You've got these big vaulted ceilings that are stories high.
Yeah. So that except for the school interior scenes, everything else was fine. I thought it worked quite well. It looked really good. Overall, the special effects I thought were pretty good. It got a little CGI-ish sometimes, especially in the climax. And the ghost effect was okay. A little too bubbly, sparkly for my taste.
Yeah, I thought so too, but at least it got across that he was not a solid, visible being. So
yeah. So
and a little different than just being able to see through him. So yeah.
So Netflix definitely puts the money out on these productions. So it generally was pretty good, and the music score again sounded very Harry Potter-ish at times as well. So, but overall a very solid production, solid cast. I can't say any one of them was a super standout, though. I thought they were all pretty well on the same level, and I just think that the strength of this series is the idea and of these keys and this key house. And I hope going forward that they're not going to that they'll be very frugal with introducing new keys, because I think they have too many keys already as it is. And you're going to get to a certain point where it's just going to become like these keys are going to be like the R2D2 of this series, where anytime you need a special attachment or whatnot, it's going to pop out and solve a problem for you.
People would get keyed out after a while.
Nice.
I've got a key for that.
Yeah.
In the door. That's the one key I don't have.
Yeah. Because right now, the one key that I think is a big problem is the identity key, where you can assume the look of other people. That just makes it too easy to shortcut things. So I hope that some of these keys are going to get lost or whatnot, but we'll have to see. It'll be interesting. Season 2 set up with 2 demons out in the wild now. And again, like that door, how did it get there? Was it a byproduct of the keys, or did the keys come from there? I don't know. So there's a lot of questions to be answered.
Every key needs a door, so
yeah. Is it another dimension, or is it part of our world, or whatever? I don't know.
I don't know if Joe's got a deal with his father. Maybe they go into Dark Tower world.
Maybe. And how come nobody else seems to know about this door?
Yeah.
That's not like this. Like these sea caves looks like a fairly popular, if not obviously dangerous, tourist attraction, but still you would think other people would have come across this door before. It's something that would not stay hidden.
No.
Like unless they explain that if you have the key to open it, or if you have any of the keys, or if you're only the locks can see it, but everybody could see this door.
I mean, if it only showed up when you had the key, that would be one thing, but it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's kind of like in Lord of the Rings when the doors to the Mines of Moria only became visible in the moonlight or something like that. Of course, that doesn't work in this cave situation, but there should have been a certain triggering device that made it visible, and not for everybody. So the mythology is not clear enough so that some of these questions haven't been answered. Which is fine because none of them are game breaking, but it's just that you want it to be tight all the way through, and when things get a little wobbly in the conclusion, and it's like, okay, so now we're cheating a little bit so that we can get to where we need to be with the story.
Yep. So hopefully they'll take some of the feedback that people are posting or in reviews or on social media and any adjustments they need to take care of the relatively minor quibbles that they have with the series so far.
Yep, these are all minor, just things that I think they should be wary of going forward. And I'm not sure, now that they have these 2 demons out in the loose, what are they going to do going forward with these? Because are they going to try to get more demons out of there, or like what's their game plan? We still don't really know.
No.
It seems to be to get more demons to come out.
It could be, but I'm assuming we'll find out, because that's cliffhanger they've left everybody on. And also maybe they might try and up the tension and up the graphic element of the series. So maybe they wanted to start out with a lighter tone. Maybe they'll see if they can escalate it a little bit. Joe Hill's not shy about that.
Yeah, sort of like what they did with Stranger Things, got a little darker. Not a lot, but definitely got a little darker with each subsequent season. And I have to say, like at the end there was really no twist. I knew that right off the bat that Dodge that wasn't really Dodge that they were throwing through the door. I knew it was somebody else. I just wasn't sure who it was. But I assumed it was the mother because she had disappeared. But so it was enjoyable, and you just have to take it as what they made it as. And it was made for a younger audience, and I think for a younger audience, they probably thought it was really cool. And I think that's great.
I think so too. I think they've preserved enough of the story elements from the source material and the look and the feel of it. And that's what I look for in an adaptation, is how well it adapts the source material. I think it helps that Joe Hill's actively involved in it. Did a lot of the writing, and so far I think they've done well with it. Interested in seeing where they go from here.
All right. That wraps up our thoughts then on Locke and Key. Do you have anything else you want to add, or are you good?
No, I think we summed it up.
All right. Good stuff. So now we'll turn our attention to something that's coming up this year, correct?
Yes, late summer, I think, is what they're aiming for at this point.
Late summer. Okay. And this, of course, is the book that you've been working on for how long now?
A good couple of years.
Right. And it's what's the book's title?
It's called Hope and Miracles. It's got a long title, actually. It's
okay.
Hope and Miracles, The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile, 2 screenplays by Frank Darabont.
Okay. Well, I like the...
I can say it without stopping to take a breath.
Yeah. But I like the Hope and Miracles is good, though. I like that. That's good.
Well, hope is a big element in Shawshank, and miracles are the heart and soul of Green Mile. So
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't remember where I got the idea, but everybody liked it. So
yeah. The only thing you could maybe add is a prison aspect to it, because both stories take place in a prison. So yes. I don't know if you hope and miracles in the most unlikely place or something like that or whatever. But so as you teased on a previous podcast episode, this is going to be about these 2 movies, and you've got quite a few contributors and so forth. Can you talk a little bit about idea for the book? Where did that come from? And did you originally start with just one of the movies and then morphed into becoming both of them? Or was that your plan from the beginning?
That much was established when I came on board. I'm not sure where the original idea started, whether it was with Barry Hoffman, the publisher, or with Frank Darabont, who wrote the screenplays. But the way I found out about it was Bev Vincent, who works with Cemetery Dance in some capacity. I think he writes their Stephen King column currently, and he's editing some anthologies and so on. But Bev saw, when they solicited for somebody to edit this book, Bev saw it and passed it on to me. And so... And they asked for people to submit their qualifications to be the editor of this book.
Oh, okay. And I thought it was your idea.
No, I wish I could. Well, actually, it's something I did talk to Frank about offhand when we were working together on the Green Mile.
Right.
Then it lay dormant for almost 20 years. So I'm not sure who came to who with it, but then they were looking for someone to edit it, and Bev thought I'd be the person to do it. So rather than submit something in writing, I went online to Gauntlet Press's website and got their phone number, and I called Barry up and made my case, and I guess I did a good job. Because he gave me the job on the spot, even though the deadline for submissions hadn't arrived. Mm-hmm. Found out later that I'd beaten out one of my really good friends, who was probably just as qualified as I was, if a little bit more, for the job. So then they had some contacts in the industry with writers and directors that were willing to contribute, and I had some material that was already around from my making of book for the Green Mile, which has yet to be published. So I was able to reshape and update some of those pieces to fit into it, and then I did interviews or arranged for essays from the other people we wanted to contribute so far. But right now, to go through the table of contents real quickly, we have an introduction by Richard Christian Matheson, or R.C. Matheson as he's known. He's the son of Richard Matheson, who we spoke about earlier, and he's an established horror and dark fantasy writer in his own right. He also wrote the script for Battleground on the Tales from the Dark Side. Was it Tales from the Dark Side? No, Nightmares and Dreamscapes series on Turner Broadcasting. And let's see, it has a new introduction by Frank Darabont, a foreword by me, which is the foreword from my Green Mile book, slightly reworked. Then we have the Shawshank Redemption screenplay, which features an introduction by Stephen King and another one by Frank Darabont. It has a couple of essays about Shawshank, the screenplay, and also another essay by Frank Darabont called Mutatis Mutandis that lists the scenes in the screenplay that were taken out in the editing process and explains why. Also has some storyboards, and it also has photographs from Darabont's personal collection. These are photos that have not been published anywhere, showing some of the costume designs, shots of the actors wearing different costumes while they were doing the production and costume design. There's complete cast and crew lists for both movies. The Green Mile screenplay comes next. Also has an introduction by King and another one by Frank Darabont. and again has photos and storyboards. There's a profile of Michael Clark Duncan, who played John Coffey. That's taken from my Green Mile book, and again a cast and crew list. The next section I call From the Director's Chair. It's essays from directors who are talking about how King influenced their work or their work with Frank Darabont. There's an introduction by me. There's an essay by Josh Boone, who's working on The Stand right now for CBS All Access and has also done some other King-related stuff. There's an interview with Mick Garris, who I think has directed more Stephen King projects than anybody at this point. Another interview with Greg Nicotero, who did the practical effects work for The Green Mile and also worked with Darabont on The Walking Dead and The Mist. Talks a lot about those projects. Pointed out something about The Mist that had never occurred to me until he said it during our interview. And then there's an essay by my friend Jim Cole, who directed one of the first Stephen King Dollar Baby movies, Last Rung on the Ladder.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
And let's see, there's also, since we spoke last about this, I got an essay by Konstantin Nasser, who's a documentary filmmaker. He directed and filmed the making of documentary for The Green Mile.
All right.
And also did the documentary in retrospect for Shawshank Redemption when they were released. Let's see, and then there's an essay called Frank Darabont and the Road to the Green Mile, which I wrote. Again, it's an updated essay from my unpublished Green Mile book. So, okay. And we're looking for a couple of other contributors. I don't want to say anything in case it doesn't work out. We have tried to get other members of the cast of both movies to take part, to at least sign the limited edition, but we haven't had a lot of success. Part of it, I think, is that more recently that for actors, some actors, not Morgan Freeman or Tom Hanks or somebody like that, but most of the other cast members could conceivably make more money by signing autographs, convention like Comic-Con,
right,
that they made for the original movie.
Right.
So, they kind of want to get paid.
Yep, understandable. Okay, so that's a lot of material, and I'm just double checking here. So are there going to be pictures in the book?
Yes.
Black and white and color, or?
I don't know about that yet.
Okay.
There will at least be black and white.
Mm-hmm. A
lot of, as I said earlier, they're from Frank Darabont's personal collection.
Right.
I've just seen digital copies of them. Some of them look like they were Polaroids,
right?
But then there are some others that aren't. But that kind of gets us around copyright issues with Warner Brothers and so forth. It makes it a little easier to
put
together.
Okay, and so the first half of the book is the Shawshank deals with Shawshank, and then the second half is the Green Mile.
Yes.
Okay.
Went in chronological order.
Okay, and the scripts that are included, are they the final shooting scripts? Are they the first drafts, or are they?
They are the final. They're the final shooting scripts. They're the ones that were published independently and individually several years ago.
Okay.
And their reproduction was being meticulously overseen by Frank Darabont, who wanted to make sure that they conformed exactly to his original typescripts.
Mm-hmm.
Although both of both of these movies were made before word processing as a writing tool became really solidly entrenched.
Okay.
And so there were no digital files of either screenplay, so they both had to be meticulously redone. And then they were vetted by Frank, by myself, by the person who's laying out the book, and by Barry Hoffman. So they had 4 people looking at it to make sure that they matched up.
Okay. And what is the intent of the book? Or is there a central idea behind this? Is this strictly like a production, a snapshot of the production of these movies?
It's more of an homage to the 2 screenplays, and how powerful pieces of writing they are, and how they resulted in these 2 movies that are still immensely popular.
Right.
Shawshank, even after all these years, is still number 1 on IMDb's favorite movie lists.
Mm-hmm. It's number 1 on my list.
Yeah. And
people probably get sick of hearing. But, yeah.
And when you read or see what when I asked the actors what drew them to the movie, they almost with one single exception, they all said it was the screenplay and the characters and the strength of the story.
Mm-hmm.
The only exception was Graham Greene, who played the Indian who gets executed. He said, I needed the money.
Well, he's honest. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, okay. And do you have a idea of the page count?
Geez, it's going to be up around 500 or 600 pages, I think.
Wow.
It's
So
it's a big book.
that'll be is it a coffee table book, or is it going to be a paperback?
No, they're going to be hard. It's going to be a hardcover. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to be published. Let me see if I can pull up ad for it on the website. It's going to be 8 by 10. Well, that's what Frank and I had in mind for the making of book. Something with a lot of I don't know if you've seen the World of It making of book that came out around Christmas time, but it was something like that with a lot of color and pictures and lots of
Right.
in the scenes stuff, so set designs and blueprints and
Right.
and all that.
Okay.
And that still may happen,
Yeah. Okay. And as far as you know, it's targeted for a late summer release this year.
Yes.
Okay. And I would like to plead, or if you have the ear of the publisher, I would really like them to please make it available on Amazon, Amazon Canada, because if to ship it directly from the publisher for people that are out of the country is just prohibitive, because a lot of times the shipping is, if not as much, it's more than the actual price of the book. So
yeah, I remember I was toying with asking Hans to pick me up original Swedish editions of the Millennium
mm-hmm.
trilogy, and just because I thought it would be neat to have the original books. I can't read Swedish, but when he told me what it would cost to ship it, I mean, shipping was more than the book.
Yeah. So I hope that this book ends up on Amazon, on the various Amazon sites, not just directly to the publisher. So I don't know if you can put your 2 cents in for that. That would be good.
Okay. I'm not sure what the press run is on the regular. Both of these are limited editions.
Oh, okay.
There's a trade edition is signed by Frank Darabont and me. And then there's a lettered edition of 52 copies that's signed by all the contributors.
So there's not any
that prohibited.
Yeah. So there's not any plans for a mass market edition then, or
no?
Okay. Well, that's too bad.
Although that might be a possibility on down the line. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Since they're both copyrighted or screenplays that are owned by Warner Brothers, I'm not sure how feasible that is. But at one point, Frank Darabont was in a position where he could Warner Brothers, whether they'd do anything he wanted.
Right.
So,
and I have to ask, are you interviewing Frank for the book at all?
I email him a lot. He's very busy and hasn't so far at least had time to sit down for an interview, but he is doing new introduction to the book, which was going to be to me in 2 weeks about a month ago. And but he's the one person on the project that we can't nudge.
Okay.
But we did get, I don't remember if I got around to, we got an essay by Konstantin Nasser. That was a late edition since the last time we talked, which was absolutely fabulous. It goes into his meeting up with Frank, how he ended up being the person to chronicle these 2 movies, and as well as The Majestic and The Mist, and pretty much everything else he's done. And that one is really good. And we also, yesterday, I got an essay from Steve Spignesi, which is absolutely fantastic. I mean, Steve's let me be in all of his Stephen King related books, except for the first Stephen King quiz book. Mm-hmm. So it was nice to be able to repay the favor. Right. And he contributed about a 5,200 word essay that's remarkable.
Oh, great. Hopefully we'll all get to see it at some point. All right. Is there anything else about the book that you want to mention? Hope and Miracles, being published by, what was the name of the press again?
Gauntlet Press.
And is that through Cemetery Dance or?
No, they're an independent publisher.
Okay.
It's pretty much like a one-man house. They specialize in limited edition books.
Okay.
They did, they have the Night of the Living Dead script signed by George Romero, Taxi Driver, the screenplay signed by, I think it's
Mm-hmm.
is that a Scorsese movie? I forget. I don't think it is.
Which one?
Taxi Driver.
Yeah, well, that's Scorsese. Yep.
Okay, it's signed by him and Robert De Niro.
Okay.
Let's see. He's done he's done things like that mainly.
Right. Okay. Well, I would suggest then to any of our listeners who are interested in this book to head over to the Gauntlet Press website.
It's gauntletpress.com.
Yeah, and I'm sure they have an email newsletter link that you could probably sign up for, or
yes, and they're on Facebook as well.
Okay, very
Gauntlet
good.
Press, and that'll bring. Oh, I forgot too. The cover is by Drew Struzan.
Oh, nice.
Which
very nice.
Was thrilled me when I found out.
Yeah, for sure. And have you seen it yet?
Yes, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, and is it a blending of the two movies, or?
It has if you've seen the artwork on the anniversary editions of the two movies,
right?
It's cover art for those.
Oh, okay.
And then on the back cover, there's a portrait of Frank Darabont.
Oh, very nice.
Yep. I was thrilled when I heard Drew Struzan was going to do it. I've been able.
Oh, yeah.
Get in touch with him and talk with him. Originally, he was going to do an original wraparound cover,
right?
But he hurt his hand and wasn't able to paint for a while, so he came up with this for us, which is a fine substitute.
Mm. He'd be good to get an interview with too for your book. Yeah. Just saying.
Might see if he's interested in that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear his thoughts process behind the posters that he created for the movies and various anniversary editions and whatnot. That'd be interesting.
That would be. I'll approach him about it.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Well, that's it sounds like an excellent book, and hopefully a lot of us will get to see it down the road. And I wish you all the luck with it. And thank you for sharing all the details.
Okay.
And good luck.
Thank you.
All right. And that brings us to the end of our podcast episode. This will be episode 106. And what I'm going to be doing next, I've got quite a few things I still have to look at. I know I've got Joe Hill's Full Throttle. I've got season 3 of Mr. Mercedes to review. I've got season 1 of The Outsider. And then, of course, all the Stephen King news that's coming down the pipe. So all you listeners, look forward to that in the upcoming episodes. And I want to thank Tyson for coming on for these last 2 episodes. It's always a pleasure to touch base with you again.
Right. Always a pleasure to be here.
All right. And as usual, constant listeners, stay safe, but stay scared.